We'll hand over now to our panel in London. If we'd just like to reintroduce ourselves, starting with Paresh on the end, if you don't mind, Paresh.
Yes, my name is Dr. Paresh Kafrani, and I'm a senior lecturer at Westminster Law School, University of Westminster.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Chrissy Lightfoot, the CEO of Robot Lawyer Lisa. We are a legal solutions tool provider here in the UK, specifically to help lay people and businesses create legal documents for themselves using a robot lawyer. And you'll find that on robotlawyerlisa.com.
Stephen Ward from Classroom Direct. We invented BillyBot, the world's first junior clerk robot lawyer. And we're using chatbot technology to try and change the way people access law in the UK.
I'm Tim Wallace, I'm a mediator and a solicitor, and one of my roles is chairman of Claims Portal Limited. We deal with 1 million claims a year online, 1 million personal injury claims a year online, so I'm interested in anything tech.
I think what was striking was that chatbots have been around in India since 2013, and where that has actually moved on as Facebook, using Messenger and Slack and what have you as a medium in order to get those messages across. So how it's evolved in the last 4 years, but it's really come to pass, and where it's going in the future is quite exciting.
As far as I'm concerned, what we're looking to do is use chatbots to engage with consumers. We want to promote access to justice, and we want to make it more we want to make law more accessible and more friendly. That's probably not the right terminology, but
Yes.
but we want to make it accessible to anyone who wishes to engage and get justice.
Well, I'd pick up on those words, accessible
Yeah.
and friendly. I was at a conference recently on the personal support unit, the people who help individuals and consumers in court.
Yes.
Said that people were intimidated by the language of law. They weren't intimidated by the tech.
No.
They said, look, we will use our smartphones, we will go online, we're happy with that. But this, to me, the bots are a means of human communication. And in terms of access to justice and providing access to justice, providing more for less, this I think that the bot is a very important component of that as we go forward.
I think that we're at an existential crossroads when we talk about chatbots. Because on the one hand, of course, they're very good in terms of providing access to justice and providing people with access to information, advice, and so forth. But at the same time, there's this tendency to talk about them as being more human, being more friendly.
Yes.
I think that raises further questions as to trust, acceptance, recognition, which I feel like are also important questions. It's about trust, acceptance, recognition. That's when I think the human comes in.
Yes.
So I think it's very much a marriage between the technology, which is, yes, it can provide great information and great assistance, but at the same time maintaining those human qualities, which are very important as well.
Well, when we created Billy, it was almost a year ago. I heard a speech by Chrissy here, and I stood up in the audience and said to Chrissy, should our chatbot have a personality? And Chrissy said absolutely yes, which was a straightforward answer. And so we decided, if you're going to create a junior clerk robot who can interact with people to explain the strange smoke and mirrors world of a barrister's chambers, then we came up with the idea that if we had a 16-year-old trainee junior clerk who was a bit of a cheeky chappy, first of all, we lowered the expectations, because we could always bail out and say, actually, I don't know the answer, I need to get my supervisor to help, or senior clerk in our language. But secondly, we could have a bit of fun with that. So you can use language which is more appropriate to consumers.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, Lisa will evolve as such, as in, at the moment it's text-based, but
Yes.
maybe in time we'll use natural language processing, and Lisa has an actual personality with a proper avatar. But I think going back to the concept about this transition that we have is in public's perception, whether it's consumers or business people, wanting to get instant responses on, you know, critical matters. When you're talking about legal matters, we all need help. But the barriers to that help traditionally has been over the last century or so, the fact that obviously with its human assistants, human barristers and such, that was the only option for the majority of people.
Yes.
But now technology, chatbots or AI platforms, more sophisticated technologies as well, even, you know, the IBM Watson scenarios and what have you, what can be possible going from the rudimentary to complex, it opens up a vast option now for the majority of the public and businesses to actually get over the main barriers to legal access, which is cost, the time that's involved, and convenience. And the research shows that the convenience element, if the public want an instant response, they're not too bothered whether it comes from a human or a machine as long as they get an instant response. So that tells us something about starting to use chatbots
Yes.
that the public are familiar with in their leisure lives, family lives, love lives, and happy to talk to Alexa and use Siri and what have you. So they expect that kind of communication in a professional environment as well. Therefore, the trust comes naturally.
Yes, I've been very interested in the whole use of AI for mediation and as a screening, whether that's through assisted negotiation or whether it's through AI looking at and offering solutions to problems. I do want to pick up on this word trust again, because I think it is so vital. We need ethical standards to underpin this. At the moment, it's a brave new world, and new frontiers being pushed back. It's very, very exciting. But then you start to ask the question, well, who is writing the algorithms, and whose interests are they being written? And whether it's human rights or whether it's consumer rights, is it absolutely fair and straight down the middle? If it is, the trust builds. But if not, and that hits the tabloids, that I was talking to this bot, you know what, I got fleeced or this stuff, it pushes things back so far. And I think always technical developments race ahead.
Does that not cause a real problem, Tim? Because what you're saying there is you've got two choices. You either have the public sector, so the government builds the bot and makes it completely impartial using clever people from universities and academia, or the commercial sector builds the bot, and then, as you quite rightly say, algorithms are going to creep in to say commercial advantage comes in. So we all know that if government tries to produce something, it's probably not going to be very good. If the commercial side does it, but it's going to be commercial. So is there a solution or not?
Well, I think it's up to people like us to keep involved with this. It's up to society really to say we need to move with this so we can take the advantages, but we need it safe for everyone to use. So I don't think it's any particular sector's problem. I'm sure the private sector will forge ahead because it's a commercial society, and that will always happen. But I think it's up to all of us, and I think particularly people, lawyers and technologists, need to get involved.
I think the word there is collaboration.
When it comes to data protection, I think we're obviously talking about people's rights in terms of data. And here I draw an analogy between a concept which is used quite commonly in human rights, which is the notion that human rights are organic, they're a living instrument. So that as time changes and things evolve, people's perceptions and people's ideas of what that balance should be obviously changes as well. So at the moment, the balance is very much towards protectionism in order to ensure people's data is protected. But once the reliability, the trust, all of those things evolve and grow a bit more, I think we'll see the balance shift, and that will facilitate more innovation. So I think it's very much baby steps at the moment.
Yeah.
I think the government will take a stand, and law, writers of law, and how the whole system works. They stand back and watch and see for a while because they don't want to stifle innovation because that has an economic effect. So obviously the balance has to be right in the timing of bringing in new policy, new regulation, new law at a point where they need to step in and say there needs to be a protectionist element here. And sometimes the horse is already bolted out of the traps and there's issues to deal with. But I think they trust in the free market economy, because we're in a free market, so just how that happens, so the private sector runs with it, because that's where a lot of the innovation comes from. And there's checks and balances in place that actually put a rein on the horses once they start getting it, things start to get out of control and out of hand. But I think what I've found quite interesting when you are pioneering, you're pushing the boundaries all the time, is that sometimes you want some regulation or policy in place that helps the public or users of these new systems understand the benefits and the opportunities that we're bringing, moving mankind and the world on. So your question about, to not stifle something could be really great, is that what is going to come out of a lot of the new technologies and the new systems and how these are being used is new data that can be anonymized and aggregated for the benefit of humans in society. And it's how that is actually balanced from the new creators, as well as not manipulating or misusing the kind of information that's going to come out of new as well. And that is still going to be a constant balancing act.
Yeah.
My position is thankfully very, very straightforward, because the person asking Billy to solve a problem is basically providing the data in order for Billy to provide the solution, and Billy provides the solution. So we don't use that data for any other
He's not going to tell his mates.
No, I mean, one thing that we are finding interesting, we had a meeting on Monday night with a group of mathematicians in Bristol, and one thing we are finding interesting is that once you actually have, if the data is anonymised, you can then pull some very interesting information out of the data. And so, it's not personal data, it's anonymised. If you know a specific set of data points throughout what you were told, and you then take it to pieces and then put it back together in other ways, you can find out some very interesting stuff. But I have no concerns whatsoever about that being personal data, because it's purely the churning the data through. So I'm not concerned. I would have.
Or breaching any new GDPR or such, because if you stored it and not shared it, but you would have to comply with GDPR if anybody said, what data are you holding
I
forwards on your
I
service?
don't actually know what I'm saying here, but I think there are two different types of collection of data. One is to fulfill the purpose of which you were asked, and secondly is to take that data and sell it on to someone else.
Yeah.
So for instance, when I ring my insurance company and say I've had an accident, and nobody has asked me for permission for that data, and all of a sudden I'm getting phone calls from companies saying, oh, I understand you've had an accident, would you like to use us? Well, surely that's wrong. But if you're simply taking the data and doing what you were asked to do, then you have a legitimate reason for holding that data. So I don't particularly feel it's difficult.